Welcome to the Family Matters Mega Summit. Your host for this session is Dr. Joanne Light. Joanne is a parent coach who is passionate about supporting parents and caregivers along their parenting journey. Take it away, Joanne.
Okay, I'm going to take it away as quickly as I can. Welcome, everybody. I am joined by this wonderful guest, TiffanyNoelle Brown, who is going to talk to us about compliments and inclusion and leadership. She's had so many interesting experiences. She's a #1 Amazon best-selling author and host of the show Raising Inclusive Leaders. And I think that's great because we as parents and the parent audience out there are all looking how to best raise leaders, and certainly inclusive leaders, which is the buzzword of the day, inclusivity. So welcome, Tiffany. Do you mind starting with telling us a little bit about yourself and how did you get here? Did you come to being a writer and a teacher and an educator in so many ways?
Welcome, everyone. And Joanne, thanks so much. Thanks, tech team, just as we're getting started. So I'm a medical sociologist by training, and I have always done work related to inequality, and then the wordings shifted over time. And I've really come to embrace the idea of inclusion as a practice and a way of being in the world. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to talk with you all about compliments.
Compliments, that's right. Tiffany's going to talk to us today about compliments and how that we as parents need to put that in our toolbox, our parenting toolboxes, in order to make family life more harmonious, peaceful. And I actually, as I deal with parents, I thought about encouragement, but compliments is something new. So how did you get to that, Tiffany? Where in your background did that come from?
Well, as a researcher, I've gone to the literature to see what are the positive benefits for both the person who's doing the complimenting and the person receiving the compliment as a way of well-being, overall health, well-being, quality of life. And compliments comes up in the literature as a way to improve well-being. And I've shifted this idea. I'd love for you to take this journey with me of usually talk about giving compliments. And I'm going to tweak that a little to gifting compliments. So thinking about our language of when we give something, then it's expending our energy and taking something, maybe some energy away from us. Whereas if we're gifting something, think about when you give someone a present, right? Give someone a present or gift someone a present. It's just a slight little tweak, but the gifting gives you more of a positive benefit in your brain's mind as it relates to the wording of gifting.
Interesting. So gifting, it's sort of like gratitude. It's a gift for both sides. So
yes.
Can you give me some examples of, we don't want to over compliment our kids because we don't want to make them not understand that negative things do happen in life and they have to deal with that negativity. But what are some genuine, sincere, authentic ways to really compliment your kids without it being too obvious or too cheesy? How do you compliment your kids?
I absolutely love this question. And so one of the things is to really, in your own mind, and it helps you to see your kiddos and your other family members in a positive way. If you are practicing thinking of the positive strengths that they have, and you're focusing on those strengths. And yes, negative things happen. Even when negative things are happening, we can still find the kernel of where something's better or where something stayed the same and didn't get worse, or an opportunity to say, hey, let's work on, you did this before, this hard thing. now let's practice that hard thing and give the compliment of what compliment, Joanne, would you think of in relation to focusing on a positive quality of someone in your family?
I would say that I have a son who, even as a little kid, was always very sensitive to everybody else's feelings, sometimes over the top, but loyalty. And I would always say to him, you're just a loyal friend. You're such a loyal friend, when he would tell me a story about something that happened either at school or on the team or whatever.
And how do you feel like, as a mom, that shifted or built on things to help create, the sociological term is self-fulfilling prophecy, but if a kid starts seeing themselves in that way, and as a parent or a family member, we start seeing them more in that way, it can shift the dynamic. Did you ever experience that when you were giving a compliment like that?
I think that's, and I don't think I've ever thought about it that way. And I often talk to parents about shifting your mindset, or shifting, from that negativity bias we all have, and how to retrain your brain and move the neurons around. But yeah, that's a great way, Tiffany, I think, to look at it, that it really kind of refocuses how you're thinking about things. And I know that I think that meant something to him, because it was a good trait that he had that we could bring up all the time, and that might eradicate some of the things that maybe he didn't do so well. But you need to find your kids' strengths and speak to them. And I think compliments, that's a new way of my thinking about how that changes a family's dynamic. And I often, Tiffany, and here's something for, I wonder how you'll react to this. I recommend that families have family meetings.
Yes.
And because it's a great time to sort of share what's going on and what's not going well, and making everybody making them come together and listen. What about compliments? How would that be a great asset or a piece of a family meeting situation?
That's a really great way to integrate the strategy I'm talking about with the strategy that you do, Joanne. And everyone, play along here. Everyone that's watching, play along in your mind. So think about, if you did have a family meeting, creating an invitation for them to come, and creating an expectation, but in a positive way, that part of that meeting is that everyone goes around and finds something to compliment. And I actually have a compliment jar. And as it's kind of like, I caught you doing something great. Then sometimes kind of addressing that over complimenting that you brought up before. If you create a compliment jar, then sometimes you want to do it, in the moment. And other times you may want to catch it, and then they have an opportunity during the week to kind of like open up their jar and look, and then they can go back, and in your brain, the neurological pathways and the biochemistry that happens for positive feelings, the happy chemicals, will start to release again, and it will actually imprint the positive feeling and the desire to want to do that behavior again as more of a habit, because you're revisiting, kind of like when you're studying for a test, right? Like you go over it and over it and over it, and then you remember it, and then it's built in more to your long-term memory over time. It's kind of the same pathway. And so I wouldn't ever worry about over complimenting.
Okay.
It's just, again, the timing of maybe at the end of every day, kind of like a gratitude journal, right? You find at least one thing about each person in your family that you're wanting to really work on a positive dynamic with, and create that little mini jar. And then with your family meetings, open it up and share. And it's like getting multiple presents as you're reading them throughout this meeting.
So everybody could put their compliments during the week into the jar and then share them with the larger group. And then you can almost see how people respond.
Yes.
You're because sometimes you give a compliment and you might not even notice how
Right.
it's being received. And I think to your point is how it makes you feel when you're doing it, giving it, because that's a
Yes.
gift in and of itself, right?
Absolutely. And I absolutely love this concept, because when you compliment someone, it helps boost their self-esteem and confidence. It increases feelings of being supported. The data also shows that people are more open when you compliment them, even when they're going through tough things. It's just so great. And the benefits for you, it boosts your feelings of positivity and well-being.
I think gratitude works the same way. It's just an
Yes.
extension, that whole idea that, as you said, a gratitude journal, a compliment journal is awesome. I think that even, tweens could try to write down if they were ever compliment, it's such a hard time to be a tween and go to middle school, that transition. Maybe this is good advice for tweens. Like,
Yes.
hey, notice when people don't notice all the times that they give you that kind of look that make you feel small or not noticeable. But think about the times that somebody either looked at you in a way that was a compliment, or actually really said, wow, I really like your skirt today, or I think you're doing a great job in math class. That seems like good advice to give our kids.
Yes, and I love that. I have a 13-year-old, and
that's so hard. Wonderful, but
it's
hard.
one of those times. And another thing that we deal with is sometimes people aren't comfortable receiving compliments. So if you're finding that you have a kiddo that's uncomfortable receiving compliments in the moment, like the compliment journal or the compliment jar is a really great way to do that, so that they can kind of experience that in private possibly, and not in front of other people. So that's another strategy too, based on knowing your kiddo and how they react.
I think that's great advice, because we all sometimes we don't want to be fishing for compliments, and if it makes you uncomfortable, you're not going to really receive the gift of it. So that's a great idea, to put it in the jar and deal with it later. Let the dopamine flow after the fact. That's a wonderful idea. Tiffany, if there's nothing else you want to say specifically about families and compliments, I know you've done such amazing scientific research. Can you talk about inclusivity and why teaching our kids, when we want to teach them leadership skills, how that is so important? And certainly our kids today have lived through a lot of traumatic kinds of things and growing. And I think the Gen Zers are really looking for leadership. So how would you help them with your program?
I am so proud of youth and family members and other role models that are supporting youth in becoming leaders. And for me, the foundation of leadership for the next generation, for tomorrow, for today even, is to really intentionally think about how you include others, how you go about expressing that inclusion, what are the practices that you're doing and the habits you're creating that create a culture of inclusion as a leader. So thinking about it now, we're planting the seeds that will grow. Say, for example, middle schoolers, high schoolers, that I even say all the way back, in preschool, to start planting these seeds of how do you see other people's differences and translate that, instead of the us, them, good, bad, in group, out group, to really practice I really appreciate and want to hear where your perspective is coming from. And the way that I built the nonprofit that I'd started, called Own Your Own Health, was intentionally putting people on the board that I knew absolutely had different life experiences, had different socio backgrounds, social characteristics, economic characteristics, physical ability, differences, you name it, intentionally trying to say, I'm sensitive to these perspectives because of who I am, but I need to go beyond being sensitive. I need to actively seek out and intentionally bring in those voices, and bring in those voices in a way that has power behind it, so that like they're voting board members, not just saying, hey, what do you think, but really structuring your business or being in a leadership role,
making a difference, really making a difference.
Mindset. Mm-hmm.
So how would you advise our parents out there on, because many of the parents out there today didn't necessarily grow up in a generation where leadership and inclusivity and understanding others' perspectives was really prominent and in the forefront. So they need more, they're all aware of it now, most likely, because it's such a hot topic in all around us. But how would you suggest that they, like, is volunteerism a good thing to encourage your kids to do? How do you teach your kids to really become, not that not everybody's a leader, but to become aware of inclusivity and to share it properly? Because parents need to be involved.
Absolutely. So family members have so much power in this whole concept, again, of how you see your kids and how you present who they are. And part of that is assuming that they're going to be leaders, making that assumption to begin with. And I love, your step of volunteering. That is a great strategy as well. Volunteering for something that brings in a different perspective than what you've been experiencing. That's a really great way. Other strategies would be if you're volunteering in a school or you're part of a PTA or PTO, then you can think about, having kids do projects and, parents, bringing forward these ideas into the schools of sharing their backgrounds, sharing their different perspectives in ways that are like, oh, wow, that's so neat about that. That's so neat about that. Not, like you're whatever, you're label X, right? And that's a great thing that we can do and empower the kids to come up with what they think is really neat about their culture.
That's a great idea. That's terrific. That's wonderful. Parents, I hope you're all getting this, because we do need more leadership and inclusive leadership, and kids who really can have an understanding, because there's just so much hate out there now. We need perspective on how to work against that, and we need to teach it to our kids in a genuine, as you said, I love your word intentional. I think that's great. So Tiffany is talking about being intentional when you're really explaining what any of this means. Let's see, I think we covered things. I want to know how parents, if there are audience members, what can they get besides your gift? But is there a way they can reach you and work with you or get involved?
Absolutely. So my website is TiffanyNoelleBrown.com. And there's another free gift on there that you can sign up for. That's a 7-day challenge to give you an example, just to prompt you each day for simple things you can do to include someone. Smile, greet them, those types of things. And that's something you can do as a family. That's something you can do across generations in your family, and see, like, writing little notes to each other. That's another way. And then also talk with docT@gmail.com is a way that you can also get in touch with me.
Tiffany has a lot to offer I so appreciate, Tiffany, meeting you. It was so much fun to hear your perspective and your clearly purely researched and understanding and experienced information. So everyone, if you want to get in touch with Tiffany or read more about her, definitely look at her website. She has a gift for you about family compliments and how it can work in the family. And I love the jar idea. I think that's terrific. So is there any, before we wrap up, Tiffany, is there anything any takeaway you want everyone to have from you that we haven't already touched?
The only other piece of like shifting how we think about things as a foster adoptive parent who's trauma informed. One thing I would say is families come in all different shapes and sizes. And even that in and of itself, let's look for the compliments, even if they're compliments in our own mind about how family structures, how different family systems are making it work, and how we can all come together. Again, Dr. L this morning, already said it takes a village. Yeah. Well, for me, family means the whole community. And so even broadening our definition of family in how we think about these things
that's very inclusive.
Important.
That's great. Well, I would like to compliment you on how well you've expressed all your ideas and given us so much to think about. So thank you for joining us, Tiffany. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy all the great speakers.
That's true. There are a lot of great speakers. Thank you.
That was an amazing speaker. Join us in a few minutes when more amazing experts share their expertise. Support our cause by donating to UNICEF. And don't forget to upgrade to VIP, where you'll get gifts and bonuses and replays and more.